I was going to ask that in one of my weekly Jamaat classes, I was asked this question. It has been said that
weekly Jamaat classes. Where?
In Southeast London Jamaat.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, it has been said that in the days of the rightly guided caliphs, the countries that were overrun by the Muslim armies were given two choices.
You mean rightly guided caliphs of the first phase of Islam?
Yes,
that's right,
of the first phase of Islam.
That's right, yes.
That the countries that were overrun by the Muslim armies were given two choices. Either become Muslims or become loyal subjects of an imposed Islamic government and pay the jizya. And along these lines, some present-day Muslims have suggested that an Islamic state should be established, and through that state, Islam should be forced on the rest of the world. Could Hazoor throw some light on this, please?
You see, the question should be decided with reference to Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his conduct, and the relevant verses from the Quran. The Holy Quran speaks of this subject in a different light than normally understood by the people. If somebody has overpowered a powerful enemy and he considers the life of his opponent forfeit, he has no right anymore to live because he tried his best to kill a Muslim opponent, he failed, and now he has got the upper hand, so he has every right, by all principles accepted by man, he should be killed. But if he says, I am a Muslim, I believe in God, now this is a very exceptional concession given to him, not a coercion to accept Islam. Because the Holy Quran says, if you kill a believer, then hell is your abode. So to save oneself, one does it, not to convert somebody forcibly. That exactly is the spirit. When you read the Quran, there is no other spirit than this, which you understand, that if somebody during the war accepts Islam on his own, maybe inside he has that intention of saving his life, maybe he's cheating, but to whom would he be cheating? Whom would he be teaching? It is Allah who is going to decide ultimately. So he can't cheat anyone. He thinks he has cheated. So Allah wants us not to play God, but to accept whatever he says. And after somebody declares he's a Muslim, one has no right to kill him. That is the problem with Muslim warriors, which they always faced in the history and will continue to face. When there is a war between Muslims and non-Muslims, if somebody says, I become a Muslim, he has to stop short. So it was never intended to spread Islam with the help of sword. Nor were they put to sword who gave in and accepted the rule of Islam of a winning, victorious army. Now, there is nothing strange and new about it. Everywhere it happens. Whenever a victorious army enters a country, it subjugates them. And Muslim armies also had the same common human right to subjugate those who were fighting with them a battle of life and death. But after subjugation, even if they had not accepted Islam, they were never put to sword. Never. They were given peace, but they had to live like a people who had been conquered, and they must obey the law of the land. So what is wrong with that? As far as the law of the land is concerned, there was no Sharia law as such which governed the Muslim states. The issue is invented only by the modern day Muslims. the best model of Islamic state that could ever be conceived was the model of the Islamic state during the lifetime of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. Now people don't perhaps know or do not want to understand these things in the proper perspective, but it is a hard fact that Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was given state authority before Islam had become victorious in the whole of Arabia. That happened in Medina, when he entered as the one who sought shelter. You see, those who seek shelter, they are not handed over the state authorities. But imagine what a tribute to his character it was. He was accepted not only by Muslims, but the entire Medina, including Jews, Christians, all of them, as their leader. And a Misakh Medina was signed, in which this rules and regulations governing this new state city, like Roman state cities, were to dictate the style of government and decisions, etc. Now this is called, in English it would be said Charter of Medina. In Arabic it's Misakh Medina. So this is known as Charter. In that Charter, Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is given the final authority to sit on every dispute, regardless of whether the disputants are Muslims or a mixture of Muslims and non-Muslims. He would be the last authority. And how did he decide? He always gave option to a non-Muslim party, if there were a non-Muslim party involved, as to what would he prefer. Would he prefer to be treated under the common law, or under the law of his own religion, or under the law of Islam? The choice was his. Nothing was imposed. And nothing was imposed on the people of Mecca when they were conquered ultimately. They did not accept Islam under the threat of sword. It was lifted. Antumut tulaqa, the grand amnesty declaration was made. None of you will be killed, regardless of what you are. See? And then they started becoming Muslims. Was it under the threat of sword? And where was an Islamic law imposed in Mecca? Not to my knowledge, no mention of this is found in history. But Islamic law was imposed. If you understand what Islamic law is. According to the Quran, Islamic law is to rule with justice. That is the only pivotal governing point around which all Islamic laws must revolve, and this is the best definition of secularism. By secularism, some people, mistakenly and some intentionally, try to make people understand that secularism means anti-religious law or a-religious, non-religious. Secularism is a law which is purely just and treats all civilians alike, without any prejudice to their religion, caste, creed, etc. And this exactly is the Islamic concept of state. The Holy Quran says, Inna Allah yamurukum an tu'addul amanate ila ahliha wa iza hakamtum baina nasi an tahkumu bil adl. Here the word amana means trust. And it's not a material trust which the Holy Quran is speaking about. It's a trust of vote, of choosing your rulers. So, Allah orders you verily, very strongly, that whenever you discharge your responsibility towards this trust of electing your leaders, do it with fear of Allah. And do it ila ahliha. Give them over this trust to those who deserve to have it. See? Then it says, suddenly, it speaks of a government. So obviously the first meaning of trust is related to government. Because as a result, suddenly the Holy Quran says, وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. And when it comes to ruling the people, governing the people, do it with justice. It doesn't say do with Sharia, Islamia, or do it with this and that. Justice is the core, the central, the rule or the central principle of Islamic way of life, whether it is government or whatever else it is. So, in the shortest possible terms, Islamic government could not be defined better than in this verse. وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. When you come to rule, then you must rule with absolute justice. Now that absolute justice is defined elsewhere. The Holy Quran says, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَىٰ. Even the enmity of a people should not permit you to depart from justice, to deviate from justice. We warn you, you must always adhere to justice. اعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَىٰ. This is closest to the fear of Allah. But if you want to deviate away and move away from the fear of Allah, well, then you know and God will deal with you. But if you are a Muslim, then the principle of government must always be justice, and justice even to your enemies. Now, some mullahs, some Muslim scholars of today, they may try to misinterpret this verse, so by saying that this means among the Muslims, not among the others. They always try to say that. Okay, there is another verse speaking exactly in the same words of the rule of justice, but adding something. Not even the enmity of a people who had religiously done you wrong should permit you to deviate from justice. Not only enemies, but religious enemies, who not only were religious enemies, but had treated you unjustly during their power, their sway, when they were in power, at that time, they were unfair to you. Not even the memory of that should permit you to deviate from justice. So, what more beautiful secular law could be defined than this in the Holy Quran? And with relation to the government, the style of government, this is the only verse or verses which you find in the Holy Quran. And again, if you speak of Sharia, the way it is understood differently. The moment you speak of Sharia as today in this context, it would be impossible for you to define Sharia, because Shia concept would be different, and Sunni would be different, and Arab would be different, and Indonesian would be different, and so on and so forth. Think of the divisions, and there would be a new Sharia concept in this respect or that respect. They have not yet decided whether to punish somebody who had committed adultery or fornication with what? Some people say the Holy Quran is very clear that they should be striped and not stoned to death. The others those who say they are not stoned to death, they are kafir, pakka kafir, they are non-believers in fighters and this and that. And if this is the sharp division on Islam, how Islamic law should be implemented, how can you impose any law in a Muslim country at all with certainty? But as far as justice is concerned, there are no two opinions about what justice is. This is a fundamental universal concept. Go to the darkest jungles of Africa and there the concept of justice would remain exactly the same as in America, Germany, USSR. You may distort your own self, your own thinking, your own attitudes to be unjust to others. That is a different story. But everybody knows what justice is. So this is Islamic law, and this is what you should tell them.